Welcome to Audiobook 365 Stories.
It is 3 o'clock in the morning. The soft night in April looks into my windows with its stars. I can't sleep because I am so happy. My whole body, from head to toe, is full of a strange and happy feeling. I can't understand it right now. I don't have time, and I'm too lazy. Who has time to understand their feelings when they feel like they are flying, or when they have just won a lot of money? Can they really do it? This is how I started my love letter to Sasha, a girl of 19 who I love. I started the letter 5 times, and each time I tore up the paper and started again. I spent as much time on the letter as if it was a big book I had to write. It wasn't because I wanted to make it longer or better, but because I wanted to keep writing it, sitting quietly in my room and dreaming while the night looked in through my window. Between the lines, I saw Sasha's face, and it seemed like there were happy spirits writing with me. I kept writing, looking at my hand, which still felt warm from when she touched it. When I looked away, I saw the green gate. Through that gate, Sasha looked at me after I said goodbye to her. When I said goodbye to Sasha, I was not thinking about anything and just looking at her beauty. When I saw her big eyes through the gate, I suddenly knew I was in love. It was all decided already, and I just had to do a few more things. It is also a great joy to seal a love letter and, slowly putting on one's hat and coat, go softly out of the house to take the letter to the post. There are no stars in the sky now. Instead, there is a long white line in the east, with clouds above the roofs of the old houses. The whole sky is getting light. The town is asleep, but the water carts are already out, and somewhere far away, a whistle sounds to wake up the workers. Next to the post box, slightly wet with dew, you can see the big shape of a house porter wearing a sheepskin coat and carrying a stick. He is not really asleep or awake, but something in between. If post boxes knew how often people use them to make big decisions, they would not look so humble. I almost kissed my post box, and as I looked at it, I thought that the post is the greatest thing ever. I ask anyone who has ever been in love to remember how they usually hurry home after putting the letter in the box, quickly get into bed, and pull up the blanket. They are sure that when they wake up in the morning, they will be full of memories of the day before and look happily at the window, where the daylight will be coming through the curtains. Well, to the facts. The next morning at noon, Sasha's maid brought me this answer. I am delight. Be sure to come to us today. Please, I shall expect you. Your S. Not a single comma. This lack of punctuation and the misspelling of the word delighted, the whole letter, and even the long, narrow envelope in which it was put, made my heart feel warm. In the messy but shy handwriting, I recognized Sasha's walk, her way of raising her eyebrows when she laughed, and the movement of her lips. But the contents of the letter did not make me happy. First, love letters are not answered that way, and second, why should I go to Sasha's house to wait for her fat mother, her brothers, and poor relatives to leave us alone together? They would never think of doing that, and nothing is worse than having to hide your feelings because someone is always there, like a half-deaf old woman or a little girl asking questions. I sent an answer by the maid asking Sasha to choose a park or a street for a meeting. She accepted my suggestion quickly. I had made the right choice, as they say. Between 4 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I went to the furthest and most overgrown part of the park. There was no one in the park, and the meeting could have taken place somewhere closer in one of the paths or small shelters. But women don't like doing things halfway in romantic matters. If you are going to meet, let it be in the furthest and most hidden part, where you might run into some rough or drunk man. When I got to Sasha, she was standing with her back to me, and in that back, I could read a lot of mystery. It seemed like her back, the back of her neck, and the black spots on her dress were saying, "Shul." The girl was wearing a simple cotton dress over which she had put on a light cape. To add to the air of mystery, her face was covered with a white veil. To keep the effect, I had to walk up on tiptoe and speak in a half-whisper. From what I remember now, I was not the main point of the meeting, but just a part of it. Sasha was not so much interested in the meeting itself as in its romantic mystery, my kisses, the silence of the dark trees, my promises. There was not a minute when she forgot herself, was carried away, or let the mysterious look leave her face. And really, if there had been any Ivan Siderich or Sitter Ivanich in my place, she would have felt just as happy. How can one know in such circumstances whether one is loved or not? Whether the love is real or not? From the park, I brought Sasha to my home. Having your beloved in your bachelor pad feels as uplifting as wine and music. You start talking about the future with such confidence and enthusiasm that it's almost unbelievable. You make plans, discuss becoming a general, even if you're still just a lieutenant, and say such exaggerated things that only someone deeply in love and unaware of life would agree with. Thankfully for men, women in love are blinded by their feelings and don't know much about life. Instead of disagreeing, they listen with holy awe, full of reverence, hanging on every word. Sasha listened attentively to me at first, but soon I noticed she looked distracted. She didn't understand my grand plans. She was only interested in the practical details, like which room would be hers, what wallpaper we would use, and why I had an upright piano instead of a grand one. She examined everything on my table, looked at the photos, smelled the bottles, and peeled old stamps off envelopes, saying she wanted them for something. "Please collect old stamps for me," she said seriously. "Please." Then she found a nut on the windowsill, cracked it loudly, and ate it. "Why don't you put little labels on the backs of your books?" she asked, looking at the bookcase. "Why would I do that?" "Oh, so each book has its number. And where will I put my books? I have books too, you know. What kind of books do you have?" I asked. Sasha raised her eyebrows, thought for a moment, and said, "All kinds." If I had asked her about her thoughts, beliefs, or goals, she probably would have raised her eyebrows again, thought for a moment, and said the same thing. "All kinds?" Later, I escorted Sasha home and officially became engaged, which meant we were considered almost married until our wedding. Based on my own experience, I can say being engaged is quite dull, much more so than being a husband or being single. An engaged man is neither here nor there. He's crossed one side of the river but hasn't reached the other. He's not married yet can't be called a bachelor either, a bit like the porter I mentioned earlier. Every day, whenever I had a free moment, I hurried to see my fiancée. I always carried within me hopes, desires, plans, suggestions, and phrases. I imagined that as soon as the maid opened the door, I would leave behind my feelings of suffocation and dive headfirst into a sea of happiness. But reality was always different. Whenever I visited Sasha, her family and other household members were busy with the silly trousseau. They spent 2 months sewing and had less than 100 rubles worth of things, by the way. There was a smell of irons, candles, and smoke. Bugles crunched underfoot. The 2 main rooms were overflowing with piles of linen, calico, and muslin. And among these piles, Sasha's head popped up now and then, with a thread between her teeth. The sewing party greeted me warmly, but quickly whisked me away to the dining room, where I couldn't interfere or see what only husbands are allowed to see. Despite my feelings, I had to sit in the dining room and chat with Pimenovna, one of the poor relatives. Sasha, looking worried and busy, dashed past me with a thimble, a ball of wool, or some other boring object. Wait, I won't be long," she would say when I looked at her with pleading eyes. Imagine, that horrible Stepanida ruined the bodice of the thin dress. After waiting patiently for her return, I would get frustrated, leave the house, and stroll the streets with the new cane I had bought. Other times, I would suggest a walk or a ride with my fiancée, only to find her already in the hallway with her mother, ready to go out, playing with her parasol. "Oh, we're going to the arcade," she would say. "We need more cashmere and a new hat." My plans were canceled. I joined the ladies and accompanied them to the arcade. It was terribly boring listening to them shop, bargain, and try to outsmart the sharp shopkeeper. I felt embarrassed when Sasha, after looking through piles of fabric and bargaining down prices, walked out without buying anything or asked for just a small amount. Once they left the shop, Sasha and her mother would discuss at length, with worried faces, whether they had made a mistake, bought the wrong thing, or if the flowers on the fabric were too dark, and so on. Yes, being engaged was boring. I'm glad that's over. Now I am married. It is evening. I am sitting in my study reading. Sasha is sitting behind me on the sofa, munching something loudly. I want a glass of beer. "Sasha, can you find the bottle opener?" I ask. "It should be around here somewhere." Sasha jumps up, rummages through piles of papers in a disorganized manner, drops the matches, and sits back down without finding the opener. 5 minutes pass, 10. I start feeling both thirsty and irritated. "Sasha, please find the bottle opener," I say. Sasha jumps up again and searches through the papers near me. Her munching and rustling of papers grate on my nerves like the sound of knives scraping together. I get up and start searching for the bottle opener myself. Finally, I find it and uncork the beer. Sasha stays at the table and starts telling me something at length. "Why don't you read something, Sasha?" I suggest. She picks up a book, sits down facing me, and starts silently moving her lips. I look at her forehead, watch her lips move, and drift into thought. She's almost 20 years old. I think to myself, if you compare her to an educated young man of the same age, what a difference. The young man would have knowledge, opinions, and some intelligence. Yet, I forgive these differences just as easily as I forgive her low forehead and moving lips. In my younger days, I might have broken up with women over a stain on their stockings, a foolish word, or not brushing their teeth. Now, I forgive everything. The loud munching, the disorganized search for the bottle opener, the untidiness, the long conversations about trivial matters. I forgive it all almost without thinking, as if Sasha's mistakes were my own. Many things that would have bothered me in the past now move me to tenderness and even happiness. The reason for forgiving everything lies in my love for Sasha, but as for why I love her in the first place, I really don't know.